What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So if you didn't know, now you will know. Eli Roth's new horror movie will be his most insane theatrical release to date. So I've commented on when directors, writers, creators, actors, actresses come out and say this about a film they're doing, they're starring in, what have you. And I've always said, and I've cautioned when they say things like this, because obviously they're close to it. Obviously they think that it's going to be this insane, scary thing that, nothing has ever like this been done before, or it's going to be this new revolution when it comes to, especially when you think about the horror genre. And I always caution to say, be careful that you're selling it that way, because if you can't deliver, you don't deliver on that, the fans are going to let you know. And once it's out there like this on the internet that you are quoting that this is going to be an insane film or the most insane thing you've ever done, again, if you don't deliver on that and fans go to watch it and they find it to be very just mediocre, or it didn't meet or match expectations, then yeah, they come back and say, wait a minute, this is the most insane thing you've ever done? Really? This is the best? I'm pretty much saying this is the best you've got. And I think it then kind of knocks down credibility a little bit to say, well, that's the best, the most insane thing you can do. Then, what really more can you do? Why go see any other project that you're going to put out there? Because if that's the best you got and it wasn't that great, then I don't think there's anything else that you can do that I'm going to be interested in. So here we are. Ice Cream Man, Eli Roth's new horror movie, will be the most insane theatrical release to date. Now, I don't know. I haven't read this article. I have two. We have this one here and another one from Variety when this story came out. I don't know if this has anything to do with if this is going to be a reboot, remake of the horror comedy under the same name that came out in 1995, starring it was Clint Howard. I think that's who starred in it. Also, again, a comedy horror film called Ice Cream Man. Have no idea if this is, again, a remake, a reboot, a retooling, a reinterpretation of that content. So we're gonna find out here together. So like I said, we have two articles. We have this one here and one from Variety. So we'll jump to the Variety one just to see if there's anything in addition, anything new that they're mentioning there that they're not mentioning here. So we may skim through that one fairly quickly. So jumping down to the article details here, so it is Clint Howard. Move over Clint Howard. There's a new Ice Cream Man in town. Variety has announced that Eli Roth will be writing and directing a new original horror movie titled, Ice Cream Man. Okay, so that answers the questions I was just literally asking. Is this going to be a remake, reboot? So it sounds like it's not. It sounds like they're just using the same name, but it is going to be an original story. Ice Cream Man will be financed by Media Capital Technologies and Roth's new company, the Horror Section, which allows horror fans to invest and buy stock in productions. And we did cover off on that earlier this year. We covered off on the fact of this new production company coming out. That yes, it does allow horror fans to invest and buy stocks into the productions, but also it was also to allow more small budget independent films to have more of a voice and an avenue to get their work out there to be seen by the fans. So again, I think we did cover off on that during a horror news update. Eli Roth's Ice Cream Man is said to be the story of an idyllic summer town descending into madness when an ice cream man serves kids sweet delights with horrifying results. Variety notes in today's report, WME Independent will represent the international rights to the film and introduce it to buyers and canons. The Horror Section has U.S. rights to the film and plans a wide theatrical release during the second quarter of 2026. So we are well off, far removed from when this film will be released. And I honestly, the way things have been panning out even this year, and some films that are supposed to be released early next year are already getting their dates moved. We've seen plenty of dates moved this year already, especially in the horror space. So I'm not holding any hope that this will even make it sometime in the second quarter. I won't be surprised if this date somehow and for some reason gets moved, like many other films do. Not just in the horror space, but again, since my focus is more in the horror space, I've seen it quite a bit. Roth's Ice Cream Man horror movie will be filming this summer in Canada. Quote, I've had this idea for a long time and studios were too afraid of my early drafts. Now's the time to push the envelope further than I ever have. With that, I think will be my most terrifying and insane film to date, says Roth. Films like Ice Cream Man are what we created the horror section for, to make unrated, boundary-pushing theatrical events the horror fans can all scream about for years. I'm very lucky to have such fantastic partners like MCT and, of course, all the investors in the horror section. So to touch on that, I think I've mentioned this example before, like with Terrifier 3. I think Terrifier 3 broke the glass ceiling, so to speak, when it comes to how studios are looking at unrated, very hardcore gore. From that perspective, when it comes to horror films, when they saw the success of Terrifier 3, the fact of the budget that it was made on and the amount of money it brought in and all the subsequent successes it had afterwards, whether again merchandise, video games, all the publicity it was getting. And I think that's another reason why we're getting now the Toxic Avenger remake reboot later this year, which has now been deemed unrated as well, because again, I'm sure they want to showcase the amount of gore and violence in that film. So I think that's the reason why we're getting now the Toxic Avenger released, because it's been done for years, and all of a sudden now it's being released this year on the heels of the success of Terrifier 3. And I think something like this, a production company like this, as he is stating here, the horror section, right here, films like Ice Cream Man are what we created the horror section for, to make unrated, boundary-pushing theatrical events. And I think there are obviously tons of horror fans out there who are all about the gore over story. I think there needs to be a balance between the two, because again, you can have an hour and a half of nothing but gore and the story is just non-existent, right? To me, that's not entertaining at all. I think there needs to be a balance between the two. But again, I think something like a company like this, I think studios will look at this and think, how do we now piggyback off the fact of the success of these unrated, more gore, hard, boundary-pushing horror films that studios haven't been wanting to touch for so long. All right, so let's move on. Working with Eli is always a privilege, and this film feels fresh and exciting as it's his first original project in the independent market in nearly a decade, says MCT principals Christopher Woodrow and Raj Singh. We believe Ice Cream Man will mark the start of the next great horror franchise with massive commercial potential. The horror section is a just launched independent studio from Eli Roth with a focus on making theatrical horror movies without studio interference. Learn more about the venture here, and this is here as a picture of Clint Howard in that film Ice Cream Man I was mentioning from 1995. So let's quickly, as a short article, so let's just quickly jump over to the Variety article, which was the original exclusive one about this. Eli Roth directing Ice Cream Man, his most terrifying and insane film yet, with Media Capital Technologies and the horror section financing and producing. So again, we're not going to read this verbatim. I'm just going to really just scan through this here, cherry pick to see if there's anything here that we didn't mention in the previous one. As he says here, Roth, a master of the genre whose work includes the Hostel and Cabin Fever franchises, returns with the story of an ideal. Yeah, so that's the same synopsis we just read. Beyond the sparse teaser, the plot details are being kept under wraps. Roth wrote the script and will direct from an original idea he has had for over 20 years. He says that the delay is because studios got antsy about financing it. The filmmaker launched the horror section earlier this year with the goal of making the kind of independent, scary movies that made him famous. I was just commenting on my opinion about why studios have been so hesitant to jump into this space. Roth will also produce Ice Cream Man alongside MCT's Christopher Woodrow. We just mentioned all that. We mentioned the rights as well, the release of second quarter 2026. We've read this quote as well, so nothing new there. So it might have just been really the only new stuff was up above. Ice Cream Man will be MCT's debut as a financer of independent film projects, as expansion from its role as Lionsgate's primary film slate co-financing partner. Recent films include Saw 10, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, and Flight Risk. Upcoming titles include the John Wick spin-off Ballerina, The Long Walk, Good Fortune, and The Housemaid. Goes on to talk more about financing. And in March 2025, Roth, in partnership with MCT, launched a horror section We've already covered all that, so nothing new there. Still nothing new, and that's the end of the article. So really, it was just that top section was just the new information. So pretty much the same thing we covered already in the previous article, and my opinions still stand. I don't think studios have been wanting to jump into this space. I think they've been scared of. I think they're scared of horror in general, and that's why they try to keep the reins on it. That they don't really allow creators to go full force into the story they want to tell. Hence, studio interference is what we know about it. What we know it to be the most is studio interference. So hopefully, hopefully we do get more independent, more true horror films out of stuff like this, out of studios or finance companies like this, production companies. And again, I think once studios realize the amount of money that they're missing out on, they're going to want to jump into this space and find a way to either take part in these smaller production companies, or they're going to pull back a little bit more and say, okay, we'll allow you to kind of create the film you want, but still interfere, so to speak, to a degree, right? They're not just going to let them go, full-fledged, go create whatever film you want, we'll finance it, and if it loses money, it loses money, right? Obviously, they're still going to have a say in the final product. So anyways, that's going to do it for this horror news update. Ice Cream Man coming from Eli Roth, supposedly second quarter 2026. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think, but also let me know what you think about if you think we're going to see a lot more unrated horror films starting to come out with a lot more focus on the gore aspect. Let me know in the comment section. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Later.